We are getting new details on that big college admissions scandal that's now being called the largest of its kind ever prosecuted. Using test administrators and coaches as points of entry to elite schools, the bust-coined Operation Varsity Blues allegedly used illegal admission strategies for wealthy families. This case now opening a conversation about access, wealth, and privilege.
The FBI uncovered what we believe is a rigged system, robbing students all over the country of their right at a fair shot to getting into some of the most elite universities in this country.
Authorities say parents paid an average of $200,000, but in one case, $6.5 million for the favors. The year-long sting has led to 50 arrests. Actresses Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin and others, including entrepreneurs like Todd Blake and trend expert Jane Buckingham, part of the sting. And this isn't over. There may be further arrests. At the center of the scandal is this man, William Singer, a businessman who ran the Edge College and Career Network, also known as The Key, pleading guilty to charges including money laundering and obstruction of justice. Singer now a cooperating witness. In one phone call, authorities listened as Singer told a parent how it all worked, saying, quote, "There is a front door, which means you get in on your own. The back door is through institutional advancement, which is 10 times as much money, and I've created this side door." Prosecutors say that side door included $25 million in bribes and a web of lies. Those fake athletic credentials highlighted with photoshopped photos and fake scores on college entrance exams.
It's amazing because what would happen is this guy would allegedly come up with a specifically crafted solution for each parent's issue.
And joining me now to discuss, Chief Academic Officer of CollegeWise, Arun Ponasamy. Arun, your company, CollegeWise, helps students and their parents legally get into college. I'm curious what your reaction was when you heard about the admission cheating scheme.
You know, I think like a lot of people, I was surprised by the audacity and the criminality of it all. But I personally have been in this profession for a long time, and all the individual elements that we saw at play, I've probably seen in the past year in some different capacity. So surprised, but not shocked.
Is that an indication that this might be more common than we think, that this happens in other ways more often?
Not so much that, but I think we always know that there are those folks out there in every part of kind of society who are trying to get that edge, that 1 or 2% of people who are willing to go to extreme lengths. And this is an example of where they got caught. And I think, you know, regardless of what the system might look like, you're always going to have some people who are trying to, like, you know, really push the boundaries.
The part of the story that confuses me the most is that they faked athletic experiences of some of these kids. So, you know, you'd wind up with, hey, we're going to be on the crew team, and then they don't wind up on the crew team. Don't the schools actually count to see who's showing up for their athletic teams?
You know, believe it or not, you know, at some of these universities, the admissions offices and the athletic departments, while they coordinate certain aspects of the admissions process, it becomes pretty easy once you've kind of taken a close look at the students' grades, test scores, which courses they've taken, which we now learn were falsified in many of these particular cases. The admissions office can say, great, if the student can contribute to the quality of your program, that's a conditional admit. And then the athletic department can decide what they want to do with that. And the admissions office, the instinct would be, I'm trusting my colleagues over in the athletic department. You wouldn't think twice. I suspect now there are a fair number of athletic offices, departments and admissions offices who are coordinating their efforts even more closely at this time.
You know, the other enraging part of all this is the sense of entitlement that's involved in all this. Look, it's one thing to be able to afford a test prep class or a seminar or the assistance of outside groups, but these were all kids from wealthy families, and you would think would have had a leg up anyway, getting illegal help to make their applications even better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's been, you know, this reeks of privilege in a way that blows away most of the stories we see. These are students who had every opportunity in front of them. And in fact, we know in the case of some of these students, they were already using legitimate SAT tutors, but weren't willing to do the work or were trying to, like, you know, not actually have to take the test themselves. So absolutely. I mean, the entitlement, the privilege, that's, you know, wrapping that all up together. There certainly is a certain segment of our society that feels like these elite universities are kind of a birthright in some ways.
You know, we've heard outrage from people who feel like Others got into colleges that they didn't deserve to for one reason or another. I'm curious, what happens to the environment on campus when somebody who probably shouldn't be admitted gets in anyway and becomes a part of the school?
It was interesting. I heard from a student that I worked with several years ago from East Los Angeles. She was a scholarship student I was working with, and she went to an elite East Coast university. And she sent me an email yesterday. She's pretty angry, as a young brown woman on campus. She felt people looked at her a different way, said things, you don't really deserve your place on this campus. And she was pretty upset. These kids deserve their spots so much less than she did, but because they are affluent, because they are white, they kind of fit right in, versus she was always the other. And I think there is a lot of anger, and rightfully, on behalf of those students. And listen, they're also going to be the kids who kind of had very similar profiles to the students who squeezed their way in here illegally, and they're probably a little resentful that maybe that spot could have potentially been theirs. But I'm probably not shedding a whole lot of tears there, because most of those students ended up at pretty amazing places themselves.
This admission scandal, the money didn't go to the universities themselves. It went to a couple of individuals on some of the campuses, but it does make me wonder how critical money is to college prospects. I mean, first of all, I can think of one presidential advisor / son-in-law whose dad donated $2.5 million to Harvard and automatically, magically got in. But are colleges looking at a family's worth to help boost the school's bottom line? Hey, the more money you got, the more money that you're going to give to us?
By and large, I'm a former admissions officer, Caltech, University of Chicago, and it really wasn't a factor at the most basic level at which admissions is done. There's a fair amount of equity there, but it is worth noting that most of these top elite universities that we've been talking about the last couple of days have robust development offices, endowments in the billions. So there are folks who are getting in through the development track. And that's been something a lot of us who've been in this profession for a while have been laughing, that this was a much cheaper way, in many cases, to find your way into some of the most selective colleges in the U.S.
Arun, there are legal ways to jump the line and get to the front of the line and get into college. There's legacy acceptance, which I've never understood why, if one of my parents or both my parents went to a school, I'd be better at that school. Or I'm not even sure if there's a lot of value of having a good fencer to be on the fencing team, or somebody in the arts somehow makes you a better student or creates a better college environment. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have so much conversation right now in the world of college admissions about topics of affirmative action, and so much of it centers around race. But, we talk about all this other preferential treatment that takes place, whether it's legacies, development cases, sports. I think the entire profession needs to take a closer look, particular universities, what are their missions? What is the value of having a fencer or a rower or a squash player on your campus? And, I think a number of schools are going to be wrestling with that. I personally do wonder, even as a big college sports fan, I struggle with what is the relationship where huge numbers of slots are reserved for athletes.
Finally, I'm curious, what changes would you call for to make the application and acceptance process more fair and also more kid-friendly? Because it seems like these days, it's like high school students feel like they have a full-time job just trying to do everything to pad their resume to get into college. So how would you improve the system, both from an application and acceptance system, but also make it a little less onerous on these students?
I would like to see more acknowledgement on the admissions side of the role that privilege plays beyond just, oh, you come from a wealthy family. Because when you have resources, you're able to get an SAT tutor. You can hire a college counselor. You may be able to, get to do a spring break trip to Bermuda that no one else is able to do. The privilege kind of comes in over and over and over. And I don't know that admissions offices are as attuned to that when they're making decisions and considering the qualifications of kids from, less resource places in America, whether it's urban America, rural America, and, overwhelmingly, tend to favor these kids who accomplish in bright, shiny ways. And there's a lot of kids doing amazing things in much kind of lower key, but still impressive ways. I also think de-emphasizing standardized testing would go a long way. over and over were being shown that standardized testing is a broken part of the system. You now know you can pay off proctors and maybe even entire testing centers to bend the rules in your favor. That's pretty shocking. But there are a number of things, and I imagine here in the coming weeks, months, and probably through the course of this year, we're going to have a lot more conversations, hopefully healthy conversations as a profession.
I got 10 seconds. Has your phone been ringing off the hook or dead silence since the news broke yesterday?
Oh, yeah, my battery, I'm just keeping it plugged in at this point. It's just draining every hour.
Arun Panusamy is an admissions expert and he's the chief academic officer for CollegeWise. Arun, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
And up next, President Trump is using the economy as a political cudgel, and he hopes to ride it all the way to re-election. Not so fast, Mr. President. An economist joins us after the break, and he explains why he sees some dark clouds on our financial horizon.